Anyways, we're going to be talking to Sara as soon as we can get her on. Sarah's working out of Remax River City in Edmonton, and she looks like she's acting. And there she is! Woo! How are you, Sara? Let me just turn this up here. I think I got you now.
There you are. I hear you. Hi.
Oh my goodness.
There we go. That's better.
Technology is awesome when it decides to work.
Yeah. Google was not our friend this morning. Sometimes that's just how it goes.
Yeah, we're all good, but at least you're here now.
Yeah, and I can hear you really well, so that's great.
Perfect. I was just sort of introducing you, like you're working out of Remax Riverside in Edmonton. And basically wanted to get you on today because I see you doing a lot of live video, and I don't actually know you. And I think I should get to know you, and I think lots of other people should too. I know you're deeply involved with CMN, and that's sort of a common thread that we have. We're one of the, or a couple of the champion agents on Bruce Johnson's big journeys that he has. So we all know Bruce really well in that. But I want to get into your business, talking about your coaching business as well, your real estate business, how you balance that with family life and horse riding and all the other kind of amazing things that you do. So basically, I guess I'll let you introduce yourself. I've sort of read your story online and everything like that. People that know you obviously have seen your videos and that sort of thing. But for people who don't know you, how did you get started in the business? Like, why real estate? Like, what was the attraction for you there?
Yeah, good question. I started in real estate working for a family friend who was a real estate agent just in the summers while I was in university. And I have a classical music degree. I studied flute performance at UBC of all things, but born and raised in Edmonton, went there, came back, worked in the summers. And my plan was to work in real estate as an assistant, basically to make money to fund my dreams of being a classical musician. However, I came back for a year between being in Edmonton and planning on going to Europe to be a musician, and was working in real estate and made just enough money that I discovered that I could pay for my other real love and passion, which is horses. I always wanted a horse ever since I was a little kid. Everybody thinks that because I grew up in Alberta, I naturally had access to horses, but we lived in the city, so we really didn't. And horses were really expensive, which they still are. So I couldn't really do that. So I completely got into real estate by mistake. I was an assistant. I had like kind of a contract with a real estate agent where I did like home staging and assistant stuff. I brought in my own assistant to be an assistant. So it was really, really great exposure. Often realtors will ask me, kind of what the key to success is in real estate and early success, like having a really good year right off the bat. And one of the things I always say is, going back on my experience, that having a really good understanding of what goes on in a real estate business is one of the most valuable things you can do, especially a high-end real estate business. Most of us jump in and try and make this big business, but we don't really understand how critical systems are and planning is and all of that stuff. So I really had this beautiful exposure to real estate from a really busy real estate practice right off the hop. And then, things kind of led to another, and I thought, well, maybe I can buy more horses. So I decided to sell real estate on my own because I saw how lucrative it could be. So that's it.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like a standard real estate story. People fall into it by accident.
Yep.
And it's usually, totally. You know what? And I know here, and I'm pretty sure across the country, and most people I've talked to, for whatever reason, unless you grew up in a real estate family, your parents were agents and that sort of thing, most people come to it as a second, third, fourth career almost kind of thing. It wasn't necessarily the path that they were on, but somehow they ended up there. I mean, for myself, my dad was a carpenter, so I did renos and stuff ever since I was a kid. I had a marketing background. I actually studied to be a scientist, of all things, so I did that for a long time.
Yeah.
But I ended up in marketing and did some flips and stuff. So real estate ended up being like the perfect marriage of like marketing and knowing about houses and being analytical, and then just like I had that sort of creative side too. And I was like, you know what, this seems like a good place to be. So it just fell into it, kind of like you did as well. What were the key things that you did that really made you successful, or at least got you some traction when you first really started getting into real estate?
Sure. I have two rules in real estate in general. One is always your current customers have to come first. Everybody in real estate is obsessed with lead generation and, getting leads and getting new people in. And my philosophy has always been treat your current customers as the most important human beings in the whole entire world. So that is really, the first thing. If you happen to hit the ground with a client, focus on them first. Focus on doing a really, really outstanding job. Number two, my other favorite saying is like the work works. So if people really, often they're like, well, I have no inertia. I have nothing going on. I need to get busy all of a sudden. Then they look at busy people and they're like, oh, I want that. And so what I always say is, well, start doing the work. You must have a really spectacular understanding of what it is that you're selling. Real estate is a really strange world in that our training doesn't actually involve a great deal of expertise in knowing about the product that we're selling. Even a lot of car salespeople actually know more about the product that they're selling than real estate agents do. And it sounds like your background would be a natural fit because, in construction, you understand a lot about houses. But in real estate, I find that's where a really big gap in knowledge is people don't really know about houses. So I say, just to get some inertia going, go out and do something that's real estate related. Go to every single show home that you can find. Learn about different floors, different carpet, different construction quality. Learn about what is a party wall between duplexes. There's just, you can learn a lot from salespeople. You can learn a lot from inspectors. You can learn a lot from trades. You can learn a lot from YouTube, for goodness sakes. But, do the work.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that was kind of the thing that I think surprised me more than anything else. Coming into real estate, I didn't really have a lot of real estate experience. I mean, we bought one or two houses in my life, kind of thing. But then when I started talking to real estate agents, I was really surprised at how little they know about houses. At least the ones that I spoke to.
Yeah.
Pretty basic stuff too. That like I said, coming from a renovation background, immediately before I started, I did some flips and renos and that sort of thing. So it really tore things apart and knew how they work. But even coming from that background, like you said, going out with home inspectors and being on inspections, I learned stuff all the time. But you got to show up, and you got to not just show up and sit on the couch. You got to show up and walk the house and climb up in the attic and look around and learn, right?
Yeah.
Pull the lid off the septic system and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. So. Looking back then, I guess we were kind of looking for questions before we had this interview, and one of the ones that came up was, if looking back on the beginning of your career, if there was one or two things that you wish you had changed that would have made a huge difference for you, maybe something that you wasted a lot of time on that you shouldn't have, or just an idea that you kind of come to understand now that you wish you knew it when you got started, what were some of those things? What would they be?
The first thing that I wish I would have known or done differently is in real estate, there's this big fallacy that you must be available 24/7, never go away, never have a life. You have to answer the phone at all costs, no matter what's going on in your life. And I wish I would have had enough confidence to know that so long as my fundamentals were good, the two things we just talked about, knowing how to do a really good job for my clients and putting them first, as well as doing the work. So long as I had those things in place, I should have been able to set boundaries from the very beginning with my clients that said, hey, I do have a family. This is what I do. I will 100% get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But, just allowing myself to have a little bit more of a life. What happens sometimes in real estate, and I've seen a couple of posts on this, is that people are like, oh, what do I do? I have no time to spend with my girlfriend. I have, real estate is destroying my life. And I've been there because I'm a hustler. I'm somebody who wants to work really hard all the time. It's just in my DNA. I come from German farmers, for goodness sakes. You must work, sun up to sundown. And I wish I would have given myself permission to know that I wasn't going to get abandoned by clients. I wasn't going to lose my shirt if I took the odd weekend and went snowboarding and did things and talked about my life outside of real estate as well as in real estate too.
And if I, just casually scrolling through your Facebook page, I think it's similar in a lot of ways to what I have and what I'm starting to see a lot of people do. Like we have our private moments that we don't put online, of course, everything like that. But generally speaking, our kids are front and center, our families are front and center, they're just part of what we do, especially as real estate agents. I mean, people don't talk about what they're doing while they're working at Walmart all day. But real estate agents, it's really interwoven into our lives. It's just, we're out with our families and we get a phone call and we have to answer, and the job is part of who we are and what we do a lot. So when you're looking on our social feeds, I notice a lot more people are willing to kind of be a little bit more authentic, like you're saying, and just sort of show that they have a life outside of real estate. And I think that helps communicate that to the clients too, kind of sets the expectation there that when clients look you up and they realize that you have a family and that you do all these other amazing things, that maybe they want to go to school and see their kid in a play, and they don't want to answer the phone call right away. We will answer it eventually, but we have a life. What is your take? And like I said, I see you doing a lot of video, and I do a lot of Facebook Live video and that sort of thing. How has that impacted your business with really making use of it to communicate with either coaching clients or real estate clients? What kind of changes have you seen in your business since you started really using video a lot or introduced it into your business?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I've really seen like a marked difference per se. Like I don't, I have people who will often say to me like, oh, well, I've been following you on Facebook for a long time, or, I feel like I know you from Facebook, or, like things like that, because video does a great job of making it seem like you're actually face to face with someone. Mm-hmm. I think the best thing that's come out of especially Facebook Live is the ability to communicate with people without having to obsess over it for like weeks and come up with this like highly edited thing and, really worry about all of the details. I think the best thing that I've seen from video is just being able to get ideas across quickly, efficiently, have people know me without it having to be overly scripted or planned.
Right. Yeah, just a lot more, I guess a lot more authentic is a way of looking at it, a lot more casual too. Because I've seen you sort of just, pick up your phone in various locations, whether you're just finishing a seminar or something like that, and just share sort of spur-of-the-moment ideas that you're having or feelings that you're having, that kind of thing. So, just connecting with people in a slightly different way, really. Mm-hmm. Going with that, I think the other, common thread that I see that I was kind of interested in talking to you about, or at least I think the first time I became aware of you was when you were bidding on Bruce Johnson's flag for add to the Western Conference. And I know Bruce really well. He stayed at my house during his journey, and I've known him since I actually met him. Our office was the first stop that he made on his trip to Costa Rica, the first time around. Mm-hmm. So I was the table that people signed the flag on.
Oh, cool.
So I met him since then, and we've been friends ever since, to the detriment of Facebook, I think, because we just chirp everybody all day long. His story is amazing to me. Like their whole family is just incredible to me. How did you get involved specifically with CMN? And I know you're a big supporter of the cause and that sort of thing. Like, what does it mean to you? And just tell me the story too about bidding on the flag, because that surprised me. Just the way that I think it surprised everybody, the way that it ended up turning out. How did that all come about? And just, I turn on you. Bruce is actually on the feed. He's watching, so he's all happy. So there you go. Tell me about your involvement with CMN and what it means to you, I guess. And sort of, again, the story about just how that whole bidding, the auction for the flag came about.
Sure. The best thing about the Children's Miracle Network that a lot of people I don't think know is that even though it's like one umbrella, the funds from it go directly to whichever hospital the local area is supporting. So like 100% of the dollars that we give to the Children's Miracle Network actually go to the Stollery Children's Hospital here in Edmonton at the University of Alberta Hospital. So ever since I started with RE/MAX, and I was licensed in 2008, I've been donating as part of their Miracle Home program. So every time I sell a house, a portion of my commission goes to the Children's Miracle Network. So it goes directly to the Stollery. That was always great. You know, I grew up believing in giving is a really crucial part of just being a member of society. And so the fast forward a few years, and our first daughter, Ruby, passed away. So donating changes quite a bit when you have a personal connection. And my feeling always was very much, you know, rather than donating to people with maybe really complex like pregnancy issues or a whole bunch of other stuff, I decided that I was going to donate to people whose kids were alive and were struggling with some sort of an illness, and like they had a shot is really, you know, what I was thinking. So we really upped our game in terms of how much we donated and the kind of contribution that we were doing for the Children's Miracle Network, just within like my own business practice. Bruce came along. I didn't know him that well. I knew him like from conferences here and there, but I didn't know his story. I didn't know about Alyssa Ray. I didn't know about the foundation or anything until I think I maybe heard about the other flag, but it wasn't until he was making his cross-Canada tour that I was approached to be one of the sponsors of the flag as he came across. And of course, it was an absolute yes. Then when he came here, I think there's a special bond between people and parents, especially who've lost a child. It's something where having those connections with people was very, very helpful in my healing and moving forward, was knowing there's other people out there who have been through the same experience and they survived it. You know, as a parent, sometimes you feel like your whole world is like ending, understandably, because your world has kind of changed so dramatically. So we had this great connection when he was here in Edmonton. Fast forward a few months, he was auctioning off the flag again, and I think I scared everybody at the table even because the bidding went very, very quickly. I didn't know who I was bidding against, but I just dedicated. The cool thing that happened before it is I had 2 sales of homes for an estate in Edmonton. And I got to know the daughter of her, like it was her father who passed away very suddenly. She loved him so much. He was a great contributor to society, to everything else. And so in my mind, I had dedicated all of the commissions from the sale of those 2 properties to the Children's Miracle Network, and was just looking for a way to come up with that was special to donate it. So when the flag came up, the bids kept going up and up and up, and I had my limit, and the limit was the amount of those 2 sales. And so it ended up, it was a pretty big number for me because, I'm like a single agent. It's not like I have like billions of dollars, but it was a big deal. And the other person, Ray and Canna, ended up bidding $100 more. And it was really too bad. But I was like, okay, no problem. It was like super adrenaline, like, okay, like no big deal. And then as I was driving away, I had to leave that conference early. I was like, oh, I should have gone out to the front and say, I'll make this donation anyway. Because I was going to make the donation in either case. And I love the story that Bruce's broker bought the last flag and gave it to Bruce. And it hung over their mantelpiece. And because the trip was partly Bruce's idea, but partly his daughter's idea, I wanted to make sure that there was a flag for her to have for herself, especially once she moved out of her parents' house. They live there now, but eventually they're going to grow up and move on. So I ended up buying the flag back from Ray. The moment I was thinking, oh, I should have bought it anyway, or donated the money anyway, Ray called me. And so I'm driving down the West Coast highway, the Weavy one between Whistler and Vancouver. And both of us are just in tears having this conversation. He was like, so, do you want to buy the flag for me? And I was like, I was just thinking that. Do you want to sell it to me? So we both ended up pooling our resources, donating all the money. We're both a little competitive. So we wanted to beat the amount that was donated in Las Vegas. So we did that, and the flag ended up going back to Bruce and his family, and it was really kind of a cool experience. But I only had a teeny tiny part in it, in terms of the money and donating back. The biggest thing was that Bruce and his family were willing to take this epic trip across Canada, and as you know, being one of the sponsors, it took a lot of people to even just fund their trip going across the country. So, it definitely wasn't about me in the end. It was about, the phenomenal work and mission that they went on. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, their story is so compelling. They are probably the most genuine and authentic people that I know.
Yeah.
So I've had the pleasure of knowing him for a while. But yeah, he brought together, I mean, I remember talking to him quite a while before he actually went on the trip, where he was throwing the idea around about this second cross-Canada trip and the idea of the champion agents and champion brokerages and all this sort of stuff, and just trying to figure out, how much money should we ask them for? And he's the most unassuming, I don't know how to explain it. He just doesn't expect much from people. Like he's grateful for every little bit that he can get, and so we had to kind of poke him to say, no, they'll give you more money. Just ask them for more money. They'll give you more money. And even when he finally gave me the message, I figured he would give me a call, and he said, we want you to be at least one of the people from Hamilton that's going to be a champion agent. And he told me the number, and I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Let's round that up a little bit. And I think he was even then he was floored, and I was just like, dude, it's all for a good cause. We're all doing it. We're all in it together. And honestly, I can say that I don't know if it's because, obviously partly because it's a children's cause, but I think with RE/MAX and the fact that it's so connected to the brokerage or to the brand, and they've been so involved that across the brand, the people specifically at RE/MAX who are involved with Children's Miracle are some of the greatest people that I've ever had the pleasure to meet, really, here in Canada, the U.S. They're just I don't even know what to say. They're just amazing people. They floor me every time I get to meet them and stuff like that. And people like yourself are just, I just start listening to the stories, and it's just one incredible person after the other. It's just amazing thing to be a part of. So if you are a RE/MAX agent and you're watching this, and you're not on the Children's Miracle Network, and you're not on the Miracle Home Program, you should be. This is the easiest
Shameless
way
plug.
to give back to your community.
Yeah.
Telling you right now, the easiest way to give back to your community. You get a tax receipt. You get to be part of awesome people like us in our little group. You get to do all that kind of stuff. So do it. And if you are a member, double up. Do it. It's coming. So that's an amazing story. I always give him a plug just to make Bruce happy. He'll call me afterwards and he'll be all happy. So let's get back to some other things there. So other passion is horses. And if we had the technical things worked out, I have a lot of pictures of you riding horses and roping calves and all this other kind of stuff that people could see. So how do you go from just liking horses to really wanting to ride them and get into competitions? And is it just part of your competitive nature? Was there an early childhood event, that movie that you saw that just made you want to do it, kind of thing? How did that come about?
When people asked me when I was a little girl, 5 years old, what I wanted to be when I grew up, I wanted to be either a barrel racer or a pilot. I think I was born with the adventure gene. There's just something about going out and doing something that's fast and dangerous that's always been appealing to me, my poor mother, my whole childhood. But there's the thing that I always loved about horses. I can't even really put into words. There's just something about being around them. I feel like it is my calling, destiny. I have to be with them because they're like spirit animals in a way, in that they're all kind of emotion. They're all because they're prey animals. They're very different than a dog or a cat, for example, that is a predator animal. So being around them, you always feel this deep sense of gratitude that they even allow you to be in their space. And you learn all sorts of principles of the universe about them. You must have boundaries. You have to have rules. You have to have play. You can't ask and ask and ask and ask and ask without ever giving a reward, or you can't always just train. You have to just go and have fun sometimes. I got into them. I always wished that I had a horse, but finally, while I was in university, my dad happened to have a conversation with my uncle, who just very recently to that time had acquired a horse farm. And my dad and him were talking. My dad said, it's one of my biggest regrets in life that I've never been able to give Sara a horse. And my uncle, who's always looking for people like-minded who love horses, was like, wait, what? What? Sara likes horses? He didn't even really know, because partly like we were kind of ashamed that, we didn't have the money. We really wanted to do it, but couldn't, right? So he goes to an auction sale and buys this red dun horse that was like the worst. Like she'd run off, she'd like pull back. She's just like always a total disaster. But I went there 6 days a week, usually 7 if I could, if it wasn't pouring too hard, and would ride and ride and ride. And at the time he had this woman who was around who very selflessly showed me everything. I didn't know how to put on a saddle. I didn't know how to sit in the saddle. I didn't know how to ride, like nothing. But she loved horses so much and just wanted somebody to go with that she really like taught me everything. And we had these horses that were like nuts, and we'd take them out in the fields and they'd like run away and they'd buck and they'd like all of this stuff. And it was just so much fun. And I was totally hooked from the beginning. Fast forward a few years, I was in real estate to ride horses and buy horses. Yet here I was, middle of 2015, I owned one horse and I basically never rode. I dedicated all my time to real estate because I was a real estate slave. And sure. Remax hired Darren Hardy one day to go into Arizona. They have this like elite retreat thing where they have like a special speaker. So I went down and Darren Hardy talked. And he schooled everybody in the room. And remember, these are like the top producers of Remax. Mm-hmm. And he gets up there and he's like, you're all unfocused. You're addicted to your phones. You have no idea how to prioritize. Like, basically, you suck. Like, if you knew how to be even remotely intentional with your time, you wouldn't just be working all the time. He's like, your potential is so much greater. So I took it home and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this competing thing. I've wanted to do it my whole life, yet instead of living the dream that I got into real estate for, I'm a workaholic. All I do is work. So I came home and I like tell my husband, he's like the best. He's like, I'm like, okay, I'm buying a cutting horse. I'm going to competitions. And he's like, okay. Like, and he knows a little bit, like when I decide that I'm going to do something, it's kind of, he's just like, okay, buckle up.
He's so like, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Like I think that was in maybe May. And by August, I bought this like really fancy horse that I had zero right to own, mostly because I was so inexperienced, and I took him to a couple shows and they were complete disasters. Like, you've never seen anything so bad. I thought it was going to fall off all the time. My like cowboy hat would fall off all the time, which is like total sign of a rookie amateur. It was like humiliating. You went and
bought the biggest motorcycle on the lot.
Yeah, pretty much did. Well, not really the biggest, but, I went and bought a motorcycle and just tried to start figuring out how to do it. And if there's one thing I've learned in real estate and through my real estate practice, it's that if you want to do something well, you have to set up the best possible conditions for you. And the best possible conditions for me was truly buying the best horse I could find that was close by and learning from the horse. So that's what I did. And, 1 year after the other, I now have 4 horses and show last year in Cow Horse, which was again, a totally new event. There's nothing about what you see in pictures that's like, I'm an expert or I'm the best. It's like, I am very much a dedicated beginner enthusiast, and a few little things we started to get, and we have a really cool, exciting year ahead of a lot of new experiences and a lot of new learning, and surely lots of me putting myself out there and making an idiot out of myself. But, I just decided I was going to be less afraid of getting mocked by people than I was of just not doing my dreams. So that's it.
Yeah, and then I know you talked about that in respect to real estate as well, sort of getting out of your comfort zone and just trying new things and actually just doing instead of being afraid all the time. That's one lesson, obviously, but what other kind of, I guess, lessons go back and forth between real estate and things like horse riding and just you're obviously a very passionate person, very determined person, it seems like. Even, back with the classical music training, there's a lot of dedication involved and that sort of thing. So what sort of lessons do you bring from all of that to real estate, to like your coaching clients? Like, how do the two, I guess, cross over, intertwine, or what do you share from one world to the other?
The coaching world is a very fascinating one to me. I really wasn't someone who had hired real estate coaches before, except for my friend John Cheplack, who I'd worked with once for 12 weeks. That was it. But there's something about having a guide to help you that is really attractive, especially when you're wanting to either expand, grow, do something different. I always liken my clients who come to me in real estate coaching as people who are like, they've hiked up to base camp and they want to go from base camp up the mountain even higher. And at a certain point, it becomes very hard to get higher on the mountain just by yourself. And usually people come to me, they're either like super unhappy, they're like yelling at their spouse, like, oh, this and this and this, or, everything in their life sucks. So, we're working on improving that. Or they get to base camp and they're like carrying 20 pounds extra in their weight in their backpack. Their shoes don't fit right. There's just some like really simple things that we can tweak in their mentality or just the way that they're running their systems. I love it. There's something really cool about going on a journey with people and seeing the things that come up that can help them. I think the universal principle that really has come from everything that I've done, classical music and horses and real estate, is the compound effect, which is a Darren Hardy book. It's a real thing. If you're willing to do 4% or 5% more than everybody else on a consistent basis, you will have massive success. Music school, it was simple. I was willing to practice 2 hours a day more than anybody else was. I started as the worst person in the whole school and caught up more or less. I mean, there were some people who were just like really, really talented there as well. But, I got to be within that pool of people that were like legitimate. With horses, I'm definitely not at that high proficient level quite yet. But I think if anything, I've learned that the more you dedicate yourself and the more you have consistency, the more likely you are to have success. The other thing that I've learned from the bad side of experience is you have to be willing to admit your mistakes. When you have those moments where you realize, I've gone on for so long and I really need to change this. Sometimes I get so obsessive about a goal that I forget to look back at the big picture and see everything about it. Do I have the right people in place? Do I have the right help in place? Am I doing things the right way that really honors my own self and my family rather than just being a workaholic, for example? So There's a lot of those things I think that are universal lessons that cross everything, and being able to share them is a very special gift and honor. I'm a big believer that anytime you have enough knowledge, number one, the knowledge, it's not stuff that I thought of. Pretty much everything that I've learned and do in my business, I've learned from somebody else. I've found it. I've sought it out in books or in courses, or I've just seen other people doing it or had conversations like this with other agents, and they tell me an idea and I, just roll with it and it works. So having that ability to share with other people has been, really, really cool.
Cool. And you can see that you enjoy it, and that's something that you're really passionate about. Mm-hmm. That the conversation, basically, it's just here's what I do, here's what works. What are you doing? How can we change that to make it better, and that sort of thing. That's kind of what I hear about you and what I see about you when I'm watching your videos and that sort of thing. And I think there's like I said, for most of the people that I've met that are involved with Children's Miracle, most people I know that I associate with at RE/MAX, people like Bruce Johnson and Mo Vacheresse is here. He's one of the champion agents. Yeah. Vince Bernelli just jumped on here as well. They're people that want to make things better. I think they're passionate, they're focused, whether it's their personal life, their business life, things like Children's Miracle. They have a goal in mind, and even if it's a general, somewhat vague goal that they just want things to be better, mm-hmm. they're working towards that and trying to find ways to do that, right? And pretty much all of them that I've met, they're just willing to share their experiences, like you're saying there, which is very open people that way, and I get that sense from you. I've never hired a coach before, but I would hire you. not to be too fluffy in the middle of an interview, but hey, sure.
I'll take it.
No, but yeah, there you go. No, but I just see that genuine desire to sort of make things better and that sort of thing, and that's the kind of people that I like to associate with. you sort of have that same, and again, it's about surrounding yourself with people sort of the same mindset. You want to be surrounded by people who are working towards that same goal. Like you don't necessarily want, if you can bring people along who are maybe lost their way and get them in the right direction, that's great. But for the most part, you don't want to be working towards that same goal and putting the right people in place to support you, like as you're saying, so that you can go off and not have to be the workaholic, so you can spend time with your family and know that your business is being taken care of when you're not there. That's it. I think the only other question I have from the audience that we had is sort of a general one, I guess, so it could be specific. What is the one thing that someone can do today that'll almost instantaneously help them start growing their business? The one you could wave the magic wand and say, just do this and do it all the time, and you'll be better. What would that one thing be?
I would say give. This is like going to make me cry. There's a universal principle across all religions, all cultures, that says anytime you give, especially quietly and selflessly, what we do, the flag thing was really great because it's an awareness builder. But it's the giving frequently that we do very quietly behind the scenes. And it doesn't have to be giving of money. It has to be giving of time, of our souls, doing something in a really meaningful, valuable way. The universal principle is whatever you give will come back tenfold. And I've seen this in my life to the point that it's almost like ridiculous sometimes. Like the people who phone and they come from, I'm like, where do you people even come from? Like, like my phone is just like always going like, oh, hey, can you help us buy a house? Can you help us buy a house? Yeah, we heard about you. Can you help us sell a house? And then like, there's no reason that they would pick me because I'm like the world's most spectacular agent. I literally do everything about the same as everybody else. We try and, make our videos better, make our drone better, but like, that's not really why. I feel like if you're really dedicated to giving, it will come back. It's a universal law. It must happen. So anytime I get stuck in my business where I'm like, oh, the phone hasn't rang, there's not a whole lot that's going on, like I'm, kind of panicking about something, giving is my number one, first, most important go-to.
Yeah. And to my own example, now that you mentioned that, you just made me think, because it's been January here in around here, and it's probably been the coldest January snowiest January that we've had in at least 5 years. I think it's the coldest one since my 15-year-old son was born. That January was crazy cold. This one has been just like consistently crazy cold. So it's 15 years I remember. So it's been quiet. Sales have been a little bit quiet. People like to stay home a little bit. So again, I was doing the same thing like you were. About the second week of January, I was sitting around working on some marketing and stuff, but not a lot of buzz as far as real estate goes. And getting a little bit worried. Like, it's a bit quiet. I wonder what's going to happen here. And then I look at my phone for a second, and on Messenger, I got a message from a Toronto agent that I don't know. It's a RE/MAX agent that I don't know, but just was like, my clients wanted to know who I trust in Hamilton. So I'm giving them to you, and I have no idea who this person is. But I think he knows me from watching these videos and maybe communicating and giving a little bit of knowledge, or at least trying to. Or maybe something else I did. I don't remember what it was. But it just sort of showed up. And then later that day, another one showed up, and another one showed up, and it was like, okay, sure. I don't know where it's coming from, but again, it's sort of that principle that if you're, I don't think I'm the most generous person in the world. I don't think I'm the best real estate agent in the world, but I do my best. And it does come back to you. People remember if you've been a good person to them, or if you just sort of set a good example, and all that stuff just kind of comes back at you at some point, I believe. You can call it karma, you can call it the universal principle, you give it all the names that you want, but basically that's kind of how it works, right? If you're good to people, they're good to you, right? But I think that's really all I wanted to talk to you about. I just wanted to get a general sense of who you are. and how you do your business and that sort of thing. I know you offer the coaching services, and you're working out in Edmonton, so you're always, anybody moving to Edmonton, yeah, I'm sure you'd be willing to help.
Yep.
What's the best way for agents or for other people who are watching the program who might not be in real estate but might look to some coaching services from you and that? How do they get in touch with you? Where do they find you online? What's the easiest way for me to get in touch with Sara?
Well, everybody's on Facebook watching this, so they can send me a messenger on Facebook, because that's probably the simplest. I have a website, but literally everything is on Facebook. It's Sara Kalke Real Estate Coaching, or Sara Kalke. Just like find me anywhere and I'll respond. It doesn't matter.
Awesome. And I was going to ask you how to say your last name, because I was kind of figuring if it was like Kalke. And people have trouble with my last name, so I understand. But
okay.
I've heard you say it a few times, so I'm good now.
Yes, we say Kalke, but it's totally wrong. It's Kalke, because it's German. So you can say it however you want, and it doesn't matter. So you could say Kalke, Kalke, like, I don't care. It's all good.
Let's call you Sara.
Sarah's
Just
good.
call you Sara.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for all the technical issues that we had.
Not your fault.
But I appreciate you being there. And there's a whole bunch of people that are happy, look like. I don't see any questions, but lots of positive comments. They're saying that they love this and you're awesome and all that kind of stuff. And I tend to agree. So thank you so much for being here. Yeah, if we have a chance to chat again, I hope we do. But I wish you all the best. And for everybody watching, I'm going to have to kind of cut off at the same time here. No end roll or music or anything today. So thank you all for watching. Tune in next week. We have the reality conference, the RIA Reality Conference during the week. So we'll be online talking to a whole bunch of people there. And as always, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
See you, Sara. Have fun in Edmonton.
Thanks.
Try to stay warm.
I will.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.